you. I've been at the forum. I have trouble with microphones, so I don't believe this thing's working. What we're going to do is we're going to do two sets of public comment. We're going to have a upfront version where people can say what they want to say. Then we're going to have the presentation, and then we'll go back to public comment again. So if you want to wait till you see the presentation before you comment, that's fine. Or you are open to comment before and after if you wish. Yes, sir.
I have one comment if you're open for comments. I have one question only.
Well, hang on a second. I got to give you the microphone. If you're going to go first, that's fine with me. I just got to give you the mic.
Well, I can talk loud enough.
No.
I can hear him.
No, so he can, we want to make sure we get the recording correct.
The only one question I have.
Name and address, sir. There we go.
Joe Salafia, 406 Ocean Parkway.
Yes.
The only comment or question I had is why was this meeting kept so secret and only resulted in the number of people that are here through a quiet word of mouth throughout the community that brought this limited number of people? You didn't publicize it. I think an agenda of the magnitude of this that affects everybody in the community, it should have been publicized a little bit more to generate a larger public outpouring. Thank you.
Next. Grab the mic.
Any response?
Not yet. I'm going to listen. I want to listen first.
My name is Mike O'Malley, 30 Clubhouse Drive. The question I have before the presentation, is there going to be a vote today on the outsourcing?
Is there going to be?
Yes, sir. There is a motion on the agenda, but there is no contract in place for us to approve.
Right.
So there's two answers there. One is the motion is to move forward with outsourcing, but there is no contract for us to approve today. Next.
Tom?
Yes.
Sorry, but I believe you made.
Yeah.
I think you
There's a couple, there's a motion.
misspoke, but it is literally not true that the motion is to move forward with outsourcing.
Correct. You're right. Thank you. I stand corrected. The motion is, all right, let's just hold on a minute. Where's the motion? Okay. We have an original motion which has been basically going to be replaced.
And that's been distributed to the press.
And that's been distributed to the press and to the public. The motion here says, be it resolved that the board accept the task force recommendation to select Casper Golf as the management firm should the board decide to enter into a management services contract for golf and/or food service beverage. It is my contention that the board of directors has not voted on, nor have they approved doing outsourcing. What they have done here in this motion, if it is passed, is accept the report, and should they decide to outsource, they will do it based on the task force recommendation. So it was the board's consensus that they have not decided to go to outsourcing, and that the acceptance of this motion would simply say, if we ever do go to outsourcing, this is the direction we will follow. Does that clarify things for everybody? Go ahead, sir.
That's
Here
the
to talk,
motion.
folks.
No, that's the motion, but there may be another motion following that. We don't know yet.
Yeah, it could be a motion to do nothing, so we're not done yet. Yes. Next. Thanks, John. I appreciate you playing Banner.
Tom, there was a question asked why we don't respond to the, normally it's been the policy that we do not respond back to you at doing this time. We listen to all the questions and most of the answers will come up during the discussion. So we don't get into a dialogue individually with each individual person. It's not that we don't hear your question, we just don't want to get back and forth into a dialogue at this stage. Next question? Next comment, I mean?
Are we technologically ready?
Yeah, we're doing the other box, so you gotta give me a minute.
Give you a minute? Okay. Very
And the
good.
other, I don't know if you want me to respond.
Please.
The meeting,
Hold
just
on.
so you all know, the meeting was, agenda and what was gonna be discussed at the meeting has been out for over a week, or a week. It was posted on 9/15, the typical way we do it. Well, on the website. And I verified that because someone said it wasn't there. It's on the website.
You don't have a website.
I'm sorry, ma'am?
How come it wasn't in the newspaper? I even looked at yesterday's Independence, and if I hadn't heard,
We do a press release. We did a press release, man, we do. Here's the process, just so everybody knows, and we can change this process if it's not working, get the word out. But typically, when we know what's going on, board meeting, we're announcing a special or board meeting. It gets announced, the board makes that decision when we're having it. A press release goes out to the papers on the list, okay, and we add it to the website. That was followed. So if you didn't get it, you have to tell me a better way to do it. I mean,
well, I didn't see it in the Independence yesterday, and I purposely looked to find out the time.
Again, that's, it was sent, I can tell you it's on the website, I validated yesterday and the day before when I got the calls. It's there under OTA News, okay? And I see some people saying yes, so they've seen it. Secondly, it was sent out to the papers. Now, if there's a better way to do it, share it with me. I'll be happy to, there was no intent not to get it out there. It was out there. So those that feel it was hidden, you're wrong. It wasn't. As soon as we knew about it, it went out. If there's a better way, I mean, the other thing we can do is potentially work with the e-alert even more if you want to give us your email address and try to be more proactive with that. We'll do whatever we can to communicate, but you got to help us. I can't do it without knowing what other options are there. Comments all I have.
Judge, you ready to go?
That's why Mr. Rako does not like PowerPoint presentations. You can go on with the rest of the meeting. Let me get this.
No, I want to stick to this topic.
There may be a delay for a few moments, but I can. There's no song.
Anything else we would bring up at this point?
Mr. President, we could take care of a piece of business now, which are the committee requests.
No, I'll wait for that.
Okay.
Let's just stay focused. Joe, one question. Do the presenters need to use the microphone for you to get it or not? I mean, I think people can hear them without the microphone, but it's up. Yeah, I'm referring to your recording capability here. What do you need?
If you want the quality of the sound to be the best when people look at it on the web or on
Yes, I
Channel
do.
78, it's best to use the microphone and to hold it within 1 inch of your mouth.
Okay. In other words, swallow it, which I did not do at the forum, obviously.
That's good.
Okay, did you get your instruction? You have to swallow the mic so they can hear you. Seriously, so they can record it.
What would you like me to say?
That's good.
Okay. So, testing, 1, 2, 3. One member of the audience asked me to ask you to point out that this is a regular meeting of the Board of Directors, not a special meeting and not a public forum, but it's a regular meeting of the Board of Directors. That's what I was asked to convey.
Okay. Yeah, and I guess the other side of that, and this is the first board meeting we've had since I've been on the board, since the election. So we didn't have a general meeting and not invite people. And I'm with Bob. If there's a way to get the news out better, tell us what it is, we'll be glad to do it. We're as open as anybody to have it. This room full of 400 people, can't hold that, but lots of folks.
Independent comes out every Tuesday.
Well, we gave the Independent the
The
information.
Independent had it.
They had it. I'm not picking on the Independent. God knows, I don't need that.
Representative sitting right
It's
there.
sitting right there.
Well, we don't do previews of any board meetings, so
Right.
that is why.
Right?
That's why we're
I
having
guess we're not picking on the Independent here, folks.
Mr. President,
That's not where we're going.
if I can make a public comment in that regard. When you send out a press release, it only goes to the press. The people you want to get to are the association members. If a press release goes out on a Friday, let's say, it's quite likely that newspapers may not the following week. If you're going to meet on a Wednesday, the Gazette, for example, doesn't publish until Thursday.
Okay, I got a solution to this. Everybody sign up to eBlast, and going
Well-
forward, we're gonna put the agenda for every board meeting out as an eBlast from OPA. So go in and sign up for Teresa's eBlast, and we will make those available via eBlast. That's the only way I know to solve that one, Joe. But I think that's one way of fixing, at least begin to address that issue.
That's a help, or you get the release information to newspapers out
Yep.
by, let's say, Wednesday, or even Tuesday the week before.
Yeah.
In
Well,
other
we
words,
don't
move
even
it
have
back
the agenda
5,
set until a week before because of.
but just move it, all you have to do is move it back about 5 days, which,
Well, yeah, well, I'd like to have a timely agenda, not 2 weeks old when I get to the meeting. Yes, Mary? Right. Okay. No, I think part of the solution here is to get everybody, if they can, to sign up for eBlast, and we'll get it to them that way as well. We want to communicate. I don't know if we want to use technology anymore or not. Bill,
Oh,
you
we
were
got
right.
it. No, well, they had a box here and I just had to reconfigure it to
Okay.
speak back.
I was just wondering if you couldn't use the marquees, if there's a topic of interest.
Actually, Phyllis was just telling me they were on the
Good job,
marquees.
Phyllis. Thank
They
you.
were on the marquees. So, okay. We're ready?
10 seconds.
Okay. I'll lead it off and then quickly pass the ball to members of our team. We had 4 of us who comprised this group, task force, management committee. We had numerous titles to our group. We were actually a group of 4 volunteers. And we have here 2 people, Jim Yates. Jim, can you stand, please? And Jim Weissler, who's talking now to Bob. And they're going to kick off the presentation here on behalf of our group. Okay. And I'm going to participate too. So it'll be Jim Weissler first, Jim Yates second, and then I will follow up with the presentation. Okay? Joe Lynch is not able to be with us. He was very much part of our group. But Joe was away for a couple of weeks vacation. I think we wore him out during this process, and you'll see why in a minute. Jim?
Thank you, Pete. Of course, you stole part of my thunder. I'm supposed to be describing this process, and you've already got that underway. Thanks. Today we'll be covering the following topics. Okay. Outsourcing in general, the subject of outsourcing, what it means, background and history of outsourcing in Ocean Pines, the outsourcing group itself, the task force, charge, and options available. By the way, I'll be doing the first 2 bullets. Jim Yates will be doing the next 2, outsourcing group and timeline of activities from inception in July to this time. And then Pete will take up the subjects of outsourcing benefits to Ocean Pines, golf and food and beverage operations, conclusions and recommendations. What is outsourcing?
Hey, Jim, excuse me, just one quick section.
Sure.
For the media, so you don't break your elbow trying to write, all of this is going to be available as a package to the media, and it's going to be put on the website for the community. So if you're looking to try to break your arm taking notes 90 miles an hour, you don't have to. It'll be made available. Feel free to take notes if you want, but it's going to be made available.
I'm sorry, I was asked by a member of the press earlier who already had the packet, is it the same? The answer is yes, with a couple of exceptions. You have the entire presentation in your hands already.
Okay, go ahead, Jim.
Okay, what is outsourcing? Defined as contracting with an independent party to perform certain functions, manage certain operations or segments of an entity's business. In our case, the entity is Ocean Pines Association. A fee is paid by the entity to the management of the company for its services. The entity continues to be responsible for the success and effectiveness of its operations. What it isn't is it's not a lease. It's not transferring the risk and rewards of ownership to the management company. Bottom line profit and loss is retained by the entity, so we're still responsible for good and bad. And it's not giving up control, which is something that would happen were it a lease. Why do it? Well, the reason one hires a management company is because that company has experience and resources which the contracting entity does not presently have and can perform better than the client. The benefits include a better managed operation, and this improvement in operations with either better performance, improved profitability, better quality, provides a greater benefit than the cost of the management company, and that cost is fees and other costs such as travel and whatever, or some out-of-pocket costs. Outsourcing in Ocean Pines. As many of you may remember or know, food and beverage operation was outsourced back in the 80s and 90s. The management contract for the yacht club, 1986 to 92, was held by Marriott, and 93 to 98 by Canteen Corporation. With respect to golf, outsourcing had been discussed as far back as 2006, when OPA hired a consulting firm to come in and give us some insights on how we were doing and the way we were managing our golf operation. At that time, the consultant stated that hiring an outside management company at Ocean Pines Country Club is a reasonable option. In September of 2009, the Golf Task Force was created, co-chaired by Dave Stevens and Marty Clark. Their mission was to eliminate the operational deficit suffered by our golf operations. The task force is to explore and recommend specific actions beyond those goals by generating revenues through increased play and sales. In September of 2009, the Golf Task Force stated in its report, the group chose to address options within the existing management framework. Although it was aware that there are golf management companies and that outsourcing is a possibility. However, the Golf Task Force believed that we can improve within the current framework and will leave it to others to pursue more radical alternatives, which I guess is what we've done. In January of 2010, at a regular board meeting, Bob Thompson, a director at that time, questioned why outsourcing of golf operation had not been considered or evaluated. That question was generated by looking at recent golf and food and beverage operations and the results, and for the 3-year period, golf 2008 to 2010, 5.5% reduction in revenue in food and beverage down 9%, combined 7.6. The operating results, golf ranged averaged about $185,000 a year, decreasing each year. Food and beverage swung from a $123,000 loss to a $23,000 profit, and overall the combined results in 2010 were $155,000 negative. In February of 2010, at a regular board meeting, following a presentation by Mr. Thompson and a discussing of outsourcing, the board adopted the following motion. Be it resolved that in an effort to stabilize our underperforming assets of golf facility, the board of directors act on receipts from Kemper Sports and RDC, two outside golf course management companies, the unsolicited request to come in and discuss the possibility to manage our golf course. This presentation should include their respective approaches, experience, and past success in golf course management. Kemper Sports and RDC, two companies. April 16th, Casper Golf, Kemper Sports, and RDG Golf made presentations to the board and the Golf Advisory Committee. Casper Golf, subsequent to the previous meeting, submitted a request to participate and were asked to do so. During that time, two of the presenting firms noted that their experience and capabilities in managing food and beverage operations and wanted to submit a proposal. Those two firms were Casper Golf and Kemper. The approval was given and the proposals were subsequently received from Casper and Kemper. In April, the Golf Advisory Committee was asked to evaluate whether our golf operation should be outsourced and how to proceed with the proposals. In June, Private Clubs Associates made a presentation to a group comprised of several directors and several Golf Advisory Committee members. Now, Private Clubs Associates wasn't included in the initial group because we hadn't been aware of them, but because Ocean Pines likes to have 3 participants for any particular bid, and that RDC did not offer food and beverage coverage, private club associates did both food and beverage and golf, so we asked them to come in and participate, so that we had 3 for each. In June, the Golf Advisory Committee voted to recommend to the board that Ocean Pines golf operation be outsourced to a management company. On the 24th of June, the special meeting of the board was held to consider outsourcing. Discussion of outsourcing golf and food and beverage operations resulted in a unanimous approval of the following motion. The Board of Directors authorize the President and General Managers to undertake the necessary actions to select an organization or organizations with which to enter into a contract to manage the association's golf operation and food and beverage operation. The selection of the firm or firms and the resulting proposed contract or contracts will be subject to approval by the board. Week of June 28th, President Rako asked Director Pete Gonsack to lead the effort to carry out the board's directive and created a small group to do so. At this point, I'll turn the microphone over to Jim Yates, and he will lead us through the next couple sessions.
Okay, my section is the task force charge and options available. We're going to go through what we tried to look at. The first week of July, Bill Rako formed our small group and called each of us individually and asked if we'd be willing to volunteer. And the members were Pete Gomsack, who's a board member, Joe Lynch, who's on the Golf Advisory Committee, myself, Clubs Advisory Committee, and Jim Beisler, the former president of BOG, and Dan McCarthy, who is an owner and operator of restaurants in Baltimore, who unfortunately later had to withdraw due to his time constraints with his business, going back and forth to Baltimore, etc. The chairs of the Golf Advisory Committee and Clubs Committee advised by Bill Rako of plan, and the board advised by Bill Rako of his plan to carry a board's directive. Clarification of our role and options available to it requested from Bill Rako on July 13th. Our role was clarified and is summarized as follows. We evaluated the proposals received, select the firm best suited to enter into a management contract with Ocean Pines to manage the golf and food and beverage operations. Alternatively, if one firm is better suited to manage golf and the other food and beverage, then select 2 firms. Determine and negotiate contract terms with the firm or firms chosen. Make a recommendation to the board regarding the proposed contract. And our options available, as we saw them, were to expand the number of firms considered, conclude that outsourcing is not beneficial for Ocean Pines and not recommended, conclude that both golf and food and beverage operations should be outsourced, conclude that one operation should be outsourced but not the other, conclude that outsourcing would be beneficial, but the cost benefit, for example, the relationship is such that outsourcing is not recommended. Now I'd like to run you through our timeline. And I don't think I need to touch on each one of these, but this will give you an idea of how we progressed. Our first meeting was on July 8th, and believe me, I feel like we've had a meeting every day since July 8th. That having been said, the week of July 11th, decided to interview each firm under consideration, and we also developed specific questions for the interviews. On the week of July 19th, we interviewed 3 firms, Casper, Kemper, and PCA. And we decided at that time that we were not going to expand that number. We felt like we had good candidates. As a matter of fact, Casper and Kemper, in their management area of expertise, they're in the top 5 in the country. So we felt like we had a couple good companies in there. We also decided to go on site and visit clubs that were just like ours, that were homeowners associations. They had food and beverage, they had golf, And we got in our car and we had one overnight visit. We went down to Virginia Oaks and Heritage Hunt, and also to Swan Point, which is below La Plata. During these visits, I'll have to say they were very, very informative to us. We met with people just like yourselves. We met with board members, the head of the golf committee, the head of the food and beverage committee. You know, we got out and went on the golf course. You know, we wanted to see what their golf courses looked like. We just asked an awful lot of questions about their operations so that we could personally understand if it was a good option for us here. The week of August 7th, August 2nd, we went down to Winsburg to Colonial Heritage, lovely club by the way, and we found, well, we were received there very well, and they just gave us a wealth of information, but Pete was going back up to Northern Virginia, so he arranged to have another meeting with a board member and was able to get even further information to help us along. Oh, good. 2 of these courses was Kemper and 2 were Casper, so that we could get an overview from each company. The week of the 9th of August, we met with the Mariani Group, reference an unsolicited offer to lease the yacht club. I don't know if anybody knows, but the Mariani Group was a group of individuals that just wanted to do the yacht club. They were interested in leasing it, but they really weren't interested in the other food and beverage operations, although they said they could possibly look into it. We also debriefed ourselves on the visits to the 4 client locations. We concluded unanimously that both food and beverage and golf should be outsourced. We agreed that the next major step was to conduct a cost-benefit analysis. Agreed to go forward with only 2 firms, Casper and Kemper. Agreed to request Casper and Kemper to develop a 3-year pro forma financial information. Then we got additional info provided by Casper and Kemper. It seemed like we were always on the phone with them or doing teleconferencing or something. We briefed Ocean Pines acting general manager, Bill Rayco, and Bob Thompson, the incoming GM. And the week of the 23rd, we got additional visits from Casper and Kemper. And by the way, both of those companies have been here to Ocean Pines a minimum of 6 times. So they've been very involved. And very involved with us, but I must say, involved with all the players. You know, they've met with the general manager, they've met with some of the board people. It's been very, very thorough. Pro forma information received and distributed. Then we analyzed and made a summary of the pro formas prepared. The week of the 30th, we received and discussed pro forma information, updated directors, Ray Unger, Tom Terry, and Mr. McLaughlin on status, further reference checking via phone discussions, prearranged conference calls with Casper and Kemper regarding the pro forma information and key contract terms, including fees. September 6th, we discussed a proposed timeline for recommendations to the board, developed and submitted follow-up questions and received formal responses, met with Bob Thompson and Tom Terry to update, met with directors Stevens and Purcell, who had been out of town, to update them on where we were. We met with the club's advisory committee chair, Bill Wentworth, and member Audrey Wall to update them as to where we were. The next week, we met with the new director, Rick Handelman, to update him. We also met with Bill Hickey, who's the chair of the Board of Golf Governors, and a GAC member to update. Unfortunately, the chair was not available at that time. Approved incentive fee formula providing a sliding scale to the management company, and we decided to submit our recommendations to the board at a September 22nd meeting due to need to make a decision soon. Unanimously agreed on selection of 1 firm to recommend Ocean Pines enter into a contract with to manage both the golf and food and beverage operations Recommend contract be executed ASAP, but not later than the end of October. Now, I'd like to touch on just one little facet of why we feel the need to move this along a little bit quicker than maybe some have seen things happen in the past. Both of these firms, all of these firms came and took a look at our operation, and they feel with our proximity to Ocean City, you know, there's a good possibility we could get a little bit more outings and maybe some more outside play. And you really have to get on the docket in October or early November in order to be, quote unquote, in that game. So we feel that, and we asked these management companies, you know, when's your ideal time? And that was their response. On September 15th, we finalized the outsourcing task force report to board and personally distributed to board members on September 6th. Now I'll turn this over to Pete.
Other questions back here?
No. This is a presentation to the Board of Directors, and we're not finished the presentation yet. May I? Okay. Outsourcing. And I think you saw earlier the topics that we were going to address today, and Jim and Jim each took two, and I'm going to take the remaining three. So here we get a little more specific. I think Jim covered in general what outsourcing is and why entities, whether it be Ocean Pine or some business, enter into a management contract. We're going to be more specific to Ocean Pines at this juncture. The benefits, you're going to see three lists of benefits. The first list are those that we believe apply to both golf and food and beverage. And then you'll see golf-specific and food and beverage-specific benefits, as we see them. First of all, what you're paying for essentially through the fee is the experience and the proven success of a particular management firm. We believe that would help Ocean Pine. They have extensive and sophisticated marketing, comprehensive employee training, which I think a lot of people have commented on the need for here in Ocean Pines. Human resources management, evaluations, motivation, etc. Physical facility improvements, systems and controls. They're in this business. They're in the business of managing golf courses and managing food and beverage operations. That's what they do. Broad support resources. That ranges from agronomy, technology, finance and accounting, marketing support. So there's a whole host, anything else, guys? Training, resources, whole host of resources, and that's really what you're paying the management fee for. Because while they would have a general manager on site, whose salary we would be responsible for, the management fee itself, did it cut out? Is it okay?
Yeah.
Okay. The management fee itself is to really pay for the cost of these support services that they have at a central location, corporate if you will, and they're in business, they make a profit too. So that's what the management fee consists of. Certainly enhanced communications is something that we saw as a significant benefit to enter into this management contract arrangement. To members, to employees, the outside world. A strategic focus that they would be able to bring to us given their breadth of experience and the number of entities they have under contract, management contract. National purchasing programs, better pricing. They have buying power representing 100 golf courses, for example, and 100 food and beverage operations that we simply can't achieve here in Ocean Pines. Now I recognize that we are part of a limited buying group, particularly for golf here in Ocean Pines, and that's to be commended, and we do that. But their power is far broader than what we could achieve with a limited group. The career advancement opportunities for employees. We as Ocean Pines are a single entity employer. They have career advancement opportunities for people who do well within their organization. And I know it was stated earlier, I think, that the employees become their employees. The financial responsibility is ours, but they become employees of, in this case, the Casper Golf Corporation. Someone who does well at one of their entities that we may have visited, for example, a mid-sized club, let's say, they do well, they have advancement opportunities. They can move up within the Casper organization. Same thing here in Ocean Pines. There's a career path that exists for our top performers that does not exist. People who want to advance would have to leave Ocean Pines and sign on with another employer. In this case, they're career advancement opportunities for the outsourced firm. Certainly improved financial performance. This is what started the whole conversation. This dissatisfaction at multiple levels. Members, board, committee, as to our financial performance. And yes, I know they are amenities, and they're not businesses. On the other hand, we've heard too many times the need to improve the financial performance, and that's in large part what this is about. Golf-specific benefits. Certainly, in this case, Casper, as well as the other firms we interviewed, and it came down to Kemper and Casper, have extensive golf course and golf course maintenance experience, agronomy expertise and resources, cross-marketing potential. This was referred to earlier. They, with their stable of clients under management, they have an opportunity to refer those people to Ocean Pines, make them aware of Ocean Pines in a way that we could never do ourselves. And in fact, I think if I remember correctly, Jim Beisler and Jim Gates, something within about a 3-hour radius of Ocean Pines, there's something like 400,000 names in a database that they have access to. Is that right?
300,000 in 4 hours.
I got it wrong. Within 4 hours, it's 300,000 names in the database that are potential players of golf at Ocean Pines. Name recognition and national reputation. Certainly Casper Golf, as is the case with Kemper, but we chose Casper as the better choice for Ocean Pines. That's going to make a statement. In addition to what they can do for us, the mere association with a firm of their stature, we believe, will be a significant benefit to being more successful in our golf operations. Food and beverage. Extensive experience, as I said earlier, in restaurant operations, improved quality and food and service, a broader range of menu selections and price points, more effective management of staff, market research capabilities. That's a real plus in our eyes. The ability to get input, and they will, that's part of the plan, it's part of the commitment, to get feedback from a variety of sources, including our members, as to what we want as a group. It's not what Pete wants or what Les wants, it's what the community wants to be successful. Creative and effective marketing, and I think, again, that's a key element. I must tell you that as we look at food and beverage, our eyes were really opened when we paid a visit to these other clubs. And quite frankly, we saw things, it opened our eyes as to the contrast between what we were seeing at these 4 facilities we visited and what we experienced here in Ocean Pines on a daily basis. As one of our members said, Joe Lynch actually said it, he said, I wish we could take the entire golf group down there and visit these clubs. And I said, Joe, that would be 9 people. He said, no, I'm talking about the entire golf membership, hundreds of people. I wish they could have the experience that we had in going down and seeing, both in food and beverage and in golf, what it could be like. And so that reinforced in our own minds the conviction that this was a good thing for Ocean Pines. Conclusions. We see significant benefits to entering into a contract to manage both the golf and food and beverage operations of the association. Quite frankly, our initial focus, as has been suggested, was on the benefits of the golf operation. As Jim reviewed the history, this all started back in January, and then another conversation in February when Bob Thompson raised the prospect of looking into outsourcing of golf, as had been discussed around here since at least 2006. There was initial skepticism amongst our group of 5 at that time, later before, about the benefits of food and beverage. Some were, I would say, very much against doing that. This guy's shaking his head yes. There were others of us who were skeptical about the benefits as it related to food and beverage operations. Fair statement, gentlemen?
Yeah. Well, it was true about golf, too.
It was true about golf, too. That's correct. And I think that's an important thing to maybe point out. We came into this independent. We did not come into, I didn't volunteer for this. None of these guys volunteered for this. We were asked to take on a job. We were asked to take on a task. We did that with an open mind. And we said, let's really seriously look at this and see if it makes sense. And we went from there. And we vacillated along the way. But over the course of time, 2.5 months approximately, we unified in our decisions, our conclusions that we have up here that I'm going to present to you. This did not start out to be this way. We grew into it, if you will. So, this is the client locations that I said a moment ago, and the discussions we had with members. And Jim already pointed out, we met with board members, golf course superintendents, without the general manager being there. We had private meetings with board members, committee chairs, etc. We concluded that the linking both golf and food and beverage was highly desirable. We further concluded that in OP, the potential benefits of outsourcing food and beverage were greater than for golf. We would never have dreamed of that at the beginning of the process, probably. Many of the benefits to be derived from the knowledge and experience are common to both operations. We said that. The financial cost of outsourcing only one of the two operations results in a limited net financial benefit. As was covered earlier, one of the options we had available to us was to conclude that, yeah, golf makes sense, but food and beverage doesn't, or vice versa. In the end, we looked at the financial. First of all, we saw the benefits to be clearly evident in linking both at the same time. Am I still on? Yes, okay. And we looked, though, however, at the financial cost and the benefits associated with doing one, golf only. But when you do that, you do with just one function, you've got a general manager full-time in place on site, and that general manager, Casper general manager in this case, would be responsible only for one of the functions, not both. But you still have the salary. Also, the management fee, there's only an incremental cost to add food and beverage to the golf management fee in a standalone golf operation. So the additional management fee to us was fairly modest in the scheme of things, and it reinforced in our own minds not just the benefits that tangibly could be received by ocean clients, but the financial cost of receiving those benefits was minimal. Contract, and so that's really it. We believe that the last thing, contracting both results in better cost-benefit relationship, and I've just explained that. We believe a 3-year contract should be entered into with terms including a base fee and an incentive fee based on financial performance, and importantly, a qualitative assessment of performance. And I'll get back to that in a minute. The reporting relationship should be provide the management firm's on-site full-time general manager to report to the association's general manager, Bob Thompson. There should also be a small group working with Bob Thompson to periodically and annually evaluate the performance and meet with the management firm representatives. The model that we have chosen to recommend regarding an incentive fee with a qualitative assessment feature provides that the base fee is paid regardless. To the extent, however, that they exceed the budgeted levels, agreed upon budget levels, call it a threshold, whatever it is, we agree to with them that this is what should be achieved this year. If they achieve it, there's no incentive fee. If they exceed it, there would be an incentive fee. That incentive fee, however, would be based on how they're evaluated qualitatively. And this is where we would get input from a variety of different sources, various committees. And we modeled it after a club down in Virginia that had just recently executed, or within the last 9 months, I guess, a contract with Kemper that had very similar provisions. And they were kind enough to share with us those provisions and how it worked. And it really was very attractive to us. If you go through the assessment, and it's an assessment based on a number of different factors and how their performance was for the year, if it falls below a certain grade, there's no incentive. If it is, let's say, an 80% rating based on the qualitative assessment, then they get 80% of the otherwise computed incentive fee. What we're trying to guard against is, would be someone who gets an incentive fee based on top line revenue. Well, you can increase revenue a whole lot by just giving away the product at a cheap price with a deteriorating bottom line. On the other hand, you can get a bottom line by declining revenue. So you lessen your money. We could turn golf, for example, by stop spending on the golf course and cheapen it up, and the golf course would be deteriorating. The golfers would be going elsewhere, the revenue would be declining, but we could earn a profit. Well, we didn't want a situation where any incentive fee was based on either one or the other. That's why the qualitative assessment comes in. So even though they may exceed the budgeted levels, if the qualitative assessment is such that they don't get a good mark, then they don't earn an incentive fee. That's the concept we're advancing. And we, at the end, it became very clear to us over time, particularly in the final stages, when we met with some of the individuals that you talked about to give them an update, we simply had not decided at that point in time. We didn't decide until fairly recently which firm stood out, and it was after an extensive amount of work on our part and interaction with both Casper and Kemper. We believe that the contract needs to be executed soon. No later than October 31st is our recommendation. We believe the contract draft has to be negotiated completely. We have certain terms that we've shared with the board that we believe and have discussed as we were charged with doing. Certain key contract terms which we've shared with the board. It's up to the board to decide how to proceed. Understanding too that the OP process involves a separate review by both the Contract Review Committee and legal counsel. The 2011 golf season requires finalization of rates and decisions on marketing strategies for package play in November. We also believe with respect to food and beverage that the sooner we can make a beneficial impact, the better. So we believe we should act now. And I believe, is this backwards? So here's our recommendation. We strongly recommend that the Board of Directors authorize and direct the President to enter into a management contract with Billy Casper Golf to manage the association's golf operations and food and beverage operations, all locations. We further recommend that the contract incorporate the key provisions set forth in our report to the Board of Directors dated September 15, 2010, and be executed and made effective as soon as possible, but not later than October 31st. And members of the board, that concludes our presentation.
What I'm going to do now is I'm going to move to the, and I've not forgotten that there's a question over here. We're coming over here first. But I want to give members of the board a chance to ask questions, comment, at least for a little while, and then I want to open the floor. So, questions, comments? That's, I think you said you want to ask a couple questions. You need to use the microphone for... Yeah. Okay.
First of all, we have to decide if this thing works. Sounds like it does. I would like to commend this task force because they did an awful lot of hard work. And I think the recommendations that they came up with, should we outsource, are good ones. But basically, I think they have identified one option. It's not the end of the road. We have done nothing so far to improve or try to improve or investigate the improvement of internal management. In golf, I'm convinced that the hiring of a first-class, grade A professional golfer, golf professional, PGA professional, could do as much for our golf course as any management company. I've seen it done in the past. I've seen how a good pro can operate. Since I've been here for 13 years. I haven't been involved with our golf course quite that long, but I haven't seen any pro do anything near what can be done. So I believe that we should at least see who's available. I know for a fact, having said that guy, that pro I'm talking about, is not easy to find. Although you can get help from Mid-Atlantic PGA and others. And I think we should go get a list of people like that and talk to them before we do anything as far as outsourcing golf is concerned. I don't know how the rest of the board feels about that. I'm just one member, one vote, but that's how I feel about it. As far as food and beverage is concerned, I strongly object to lumping golf and food and beverage all on the same boat. I think that's two separate things and should be considered as two separate things. We have a new manager for the last year over at the yacht club. I don't know if you noticed or not, but on one of the early charts, the food and beverage deficit last year was $21,000. At the yacht club, it was $11,000. If each member would go over there and spend $1, it would be even. I think a lot of hard work is going into that over there. I think it's just getting started. The manager there has not had any help at all. He hasn't had the benefit of an assistant like his predecessor. And I think he's on the right track. I understand that the figures for this summer, I haven't seen them, but I understand that they're even better than they have been. So to just cut them off at the knees at this point, I think is a mistake. I don't know what else I can say. Thank you.
Rick, can I just say one thing? Just, you all ought to announce who you are, just like we do on the membership, so that we have a feeling of who's speaking. I don't know who that gentleman was.
Les Purcell. Sorry.
I'm Les Purcell, been on the board. This is my 4th year.
Thank you.
Good idea. Thank you.
I'm Ray Unger, this is my 2nd term. I had the privilege of meeting with the people from Casper Golf for several hours the other day. And my comments primarily are going to be for food and beverage, not necessarily for golf. I'm almost in total agreement as far as getting Billy Casper, a professional management company, in here for golf. After my meeting with him the other day and sitting down and chatting to see him with him, it was pretty obvious at the end of the meeting that they had not done their homework or done any real looking into exactly what our situation is with food and beverages in Ocean Pines over at the Beach Club or at Turns Landing. Not Turns Landing, at the Turns Grill. After a little while, when I was explaining to them what the menus really are and what people down here theoretically and actually right now are really used to eating and used to doing over at the Yacht Club, which is based on what they've done this past year, there have been many times in the past where outside companies have come in and everybody sits in this room knows that, oh, we're going to decide we're going to make it high-end, excellent food, catering, quality, the type of thing. And it's never worked in the past because that's primarily not what most of the people that go over to the Yacht Club want to do. I go over there a couple times a week and to drink my 1 beer and get something to eat and take it home. And the food that we want and the kids want and everything is what's being served there now primarily. And but their quote was when they made it said they want to turn, because it says Yacht Club, they wanted to make the Yacht Club like the rest of the yacht clubs, high end, have the expensive meals and this type of thing. And they weren't really aware, and after I finished with them, it's like talking to deer in the headlights, okay? They weren't really aware about that. Secondly, they had plans over at the Beach Club to really do a marketing program to put everything together over there to bring in outside people other than Ocean Pines residents. They simply were not aware what what our licensing situation is over there. You can't do that. Because of the situation that it is in Ocean City with the licensing, I don't think that they would go in as a management company have had any success in changing it over to make that change. The other thing is that over at Turns Grill, They had some great ideas for what they would like to do at the country club as far as food and beverage is concerned, to start to bring it back like it was many years ago when they had a lot of social events there, a lot of the clubs, the parties, the card clubs and all this type of thing. And one of them also made the comment about the kitchen. Well, you're right. They couldn't do any of that unless we spent the money to replace the kitchen over at the country club. That's a lot of money. That, by the way, if they were there and said, well, we need this done, would something we'd have to make a decision when it would be out of budget. It would not be within the budget to do. I therefore concluded at the end, and I even told them there, that the numbers that they had put together and brought forth as far as food and beverage are concerned were optimistically high because they really hadn't done their homework and done a marketing plan on our food and beverage as it actually is an ocean pond. And I'll just leave it at that. I think that the two have to be separate completely. That's my comment.
Yeah, I'd like to start too by congratulating the committee on a job, a very tough job that they did extremely well. And I'd like to thank them for bringing us to the point where we are right now. Hey, my name is Dave Stevens. I've been on the board. This will be my 4th year. And I live at 122 Central Park East in the park. Bringing us to the point where we are right now, I think I can say safely, we had a closed meeting yesterday in which the details of the proposals and the numbers that we're handing us, which are proprietary, had to be discussed in private. I believe the task force made a recommendation and justified that recommendation fully in the minds of the board that if we were to proceed with outsourcing, that of the companies that were available and looked at, that Billy Casper Golf is the recommended one, and I think there was no dissension from the board on that. One of the things I saw today, and we kind of get these piecemeal, I came back from vacation, I was briefed by the board individually on where they were. At that point in time, terms and conditions nor pro formas weren't formally available, so I didn't see those. That was the week right after Labor Day. And this past Thursday, we received this book, which is the documented recommendations, which includes the pro formas and some terms and conditions. Today, I saw Jimmy Yates put up a slide, which, maybe I missed it, but I didn't see in here, which was a listing of the things that the committee was supposed to look at. And I don't believe that job was completed. What I'm specifically talking about is the decision to move forward with outsourcing itself. We had enough information to compare two companies and say, look, this one is better than the other, for a lot of reasons, not just the numbers. What we didn't do, I feel, is sit down and analyze what the costs and the benefits would be specifically, and the risks and rewards would be for going into outsourcing as opposed to continuing with self-management. Now, there's a lot of speculation on both sides and both of those alternatives that has to be done, a lot of assumptions that have to be made. I mean, if you get a pro forma, which is a 3-year projection, it is a 3-year projection. It is an estimate. It's what these people honestly think they can do. At the same time, what you have to, I believe, compare that to is an estimate of what we believe we can do on our own. Not just what we did last year or the year before that or the year before that. Because in fact, in food and beverage, for sure, we've seen a dramatic improvement this year, and there's no reason to believe that we can't see another one. And in golf, we're working on competing forces where for the first time, just a couple of years ago, we started looking at the idea of shifting from a membership-based Of course, we didn't have to look too hard, the members left. But from a membership-based economy in golf to an outside play golf. We hired a director of golf marketing on a highly incentivized and part-time basis. And we've started to see some positive results on that. Bottom line, still got a big loss. So we really need to compare what it could possibly cost us to do this and what we can gain. If you look at the cost, I mean, the bottom line is that we're adding $203,000 in management expenses, above and beyond to anything that we have now, and without any corresponding reduction in any management expenses that we already have. Actually, interestingly enough, if we look at the performance, we're increasing our payroll by $100,000. And by the way, forgive me, these are round numbers, and I kind of look at them and, put them out, but I'll stand by them. Now, to offset that, we're being promised, I'm talking about just in the first year now, $326,000 in additional revenues. Most of that coming from, I think, the food and beverage sector. And as Pete pointed out, there's many areas in which they believe they can reduce our costs. Certainly, the biggest thing is reducing payroll costs by something like $111,000 adding in abruptly. These things have to be looked at carefully. Okay, we have to, and we haven't simply flat out had the time to do that. And this is a huge decision. We need to take the time. I know that there's some urgency involved in terms of the golf season. And I know everybody knows that we do have to take some form of action. But in my opinion, we need the time to study. We need to do two things. One is we have to look very carefully at the performance and the costs and what those costs imply, and any hidden costs that may be involved that aren't obvious in this. And we need to do that analysis. And we need to do it not based on Casper versus another company, but based upon Casper and what we can do by ourselves. The second thing we need to do, which has only been done, I mean, in my mind, to a very limited extent, is define what our terms and conditions are for operating both golf and food and beverage. What are the operating hours going to be for the yacht club and the other conditions? Ray pointed out that there's been misconceptions on the information that we've been given. Perhaps not incorrect idea of what our limits are in terms of operating a beach club and opening it up to the public. All of these things are details that have to be studied and they have to be looked at. And when we're finished, we need to have a comprehensive set of terms and conditions that say, okay, here's what we want. Now, do I think we can get there from here? Yes, I do. And I do think that outsourcing could be a definite possibility. I also agree that you have to look at them separately. Now, one of the things that's not been said is that in terms of where we are right now, you can't separate them. In other words, the recommendation is based on doing both. If you do either, the management costs will overwhelm you. So, again, all I'm saying is we can't do it today. We can try and do it as fast as we possibly can, but we should do it thoroughly and not quickly.
Rick Handelman, new board member. I looked at, I've been here a short time, I looked at many different figures, in fact. I worked here about 9 years. And I've got to know the numbers pretty well. I think that one thing that stands out is the board, Ocean Pines, has trouble making change in decisions. I think we need to go forward with some change. And whether that's the golf and food and beverage, economically, it makes sense. You're adding about 24 or up to $50,000 a year to food and beverage and golf. So you're adding a small amount of money to have oversight in golf and food and beverage. One thing we have to be concerned about are the people who are there now. And we have to have a contract that says to them, we're not unhappy with the people that are there now. We need to add the expertise to them, not get rid of them. To add expertise in marketing, and expertise in management. And Joe's shown us, he's done a great job at the food and beverage of the Yacht Club. But how much better would it be if we had Joe some help? Projections, they're what they're called, projections. They're not worth the paper they're put on, as far as I'm concerned. I can project anything I want, and I've done enough projections in my life to know that you can say, we're going to do this, we're going to do this, we're going to do this. You need to make the change and see what happens. If good people who've done a lot of work, and a lot of research, and the numbers in the last 10 years have not looked that good to me. So I guess the biggest thing I want to do is make a decision what we're going to do and not wait forever.
John McLaughlin, 4 Tiller Lane. I've been a member of the board now. This is going on my third year. Yes, we've seen some improvements in the running of the yacht club. No question about that. Many of those savings have been a result of reduction. I don't know what's going on here. Is it dead?
It's not working for you.
Slide your hand down a little.
Straight. Is that better? There we go. Okay. A lot of it's been savings as a result of personnel costs. And Joe's working very hard, okay? I readily admit that. Can he do it all by himself? No. Can our golf supervisor manager do it all by themselves? No. I think the issue is there's a couple of things we have to ask ourselves. This is about customer satisfaction. I'm not a golfer. I've talked to a number of golfers, and they tell me the satisfaction level isn't there. I'm a foodie. I do like to eat. I travel all over the country to go to various restaurants. And to me, satisfaction is a key when you go to restaurants. Now, I'm not saying it has to be up here, as Ray was explaining. I'm saying whatever it is, it has to be satisfying to us, the user of those facilities. And I don't necessarily find, I'll be blunt, that the club is satisfying to me. I question whether I go back. I will tell you that I know many people that don't use the club because they just don't feel happy there, whatever the case may be. The other thing is that we have systems in place. We've been discussing this for a long time. Mr. Rico, the past president, has tried to say we need systems in place to manage these things. And currently, we still haven't gotten there. By hiring an outside management firm, whether whoever want it be, they will bring to us their system.
Okay, we're ready to get started again. We got a new battery, we're all charged up. Shoot, we'll order in pizzas for dinner, we'll be fine. How much of John's have you missed, Joe, do you know?
Honestly, I can't say.
Let's go.
Are we ready, folks? Pete?
I am.
You are, Bob, thank you, then we'll begin. I just ask that this benefit slide be brought back up. Because this is the thing that I think we've been missing in the Pines for a long time. Is A, the broad support that we need to put a lot of these things in place to make it successful. And that's one of the things that a management company done right will bring to us. The other one is a strategic focus of where we want to go. And it's the food and golf, the purchasing power. I mean, these are great benefits to bring to the table. And we haven't been able to do it successfully. And as someone told me during the break, every year we talk about increasing revenue, and every year our revenue tends to be going down. So we have to ask ourselves, is there a better way of doing business? Now, we've outsourced before, the Marriott, we've done that, we've seen that. Has it been successful? Well, you know what? You hire them for their management expertise, and when you get involved and try and tell them what to do and how to do it, and I believe that's what we did back then, you lose their management expertise and they walk off the job, or they ask to leave or back out. Now, we heard someone say that we could go out and hire a Class A golf supervisor. And that is true, and it's certainly a very expensive cost. But I would also point out that he's going to have limited knowledge. He's not going to necessarily have that knowledge to how to expand our outsourced outside play. He's not going to have 300,000 names to go to. You know, and that's important. So again, am I in favor of outsourcing? Yes. Am I in favor? Do we have a contract in place at this stage? No. Can we negotiate a lot of terms and conditions into that contract? That remains to be seen. However, to say here again to rehash all of this and see where we're going, you know, I think it's a mistake. I think we need to move forward. And yes, we talked about protecting our people, and that's critical. And I think that any company that comes on board, our current management team would in fact be brought on board. In fact, I think that was a requirement. Was it not, Jim? Yeah. Okay. So we're giving them another opportunity to exceed, and as mentioned, opportunities to grow, which I think is important. Because I've moved around all my life, so I'm not, you know, I'm not married in any one area. However, again, it's a tough decision. And I don't know how this board would vote on it if it came to a vote right now. As you can see, there's a couple of signs. But again, I would say that I'm not too worried about the contract at this stage because it has to be negotiated. And we'll put together a good negotiation team. I mean, this is one of the finest studies I've seen put together. I mean, it's extremely comprehensive, and I don't think the next step would be anything less than that, to protect that in our interest. And the bottom line is, I said it when I first came on the board, and I'll say it again, is customer satisfaction. If I'm satisfied with an organization or with a facility, I'm going to go back and back and back. If I'm unhappy with a manufacturer, I'm not going to buy GM next year, I'm going to buy a Ford because I wasn't happy with GM. Or if I'm happy with GM and not happy with Ford, you know, it's very important that we understand it's about customer satisfaction. That's what brings you back into the door. And that's why we're here talking about it. Not only because of the revenue, but because we've heard customers say they're unhappy and they're going elsewhere. Can we compete? Absolutely. Are we doing a good job now? Yes. Can we do better? Yes. Do we need to put systems in place? Talk about customer service, how waitresses interact, how the cleanliness, all those things. I personally believe the answer is yes. We need standards. That all.
Everybody have their say? I'm Pete Comsack, and I'm a member of the board. So I have a
Pete?
I'm going to put my board hat on now, not my task force hat, but perhaps both. I can't separate the two now. I'm just going to offer a couple comments in response to comments that were already made. But let me preface it again with our group looked at this from the outset independently with an open mind, and we became convinced along the way. The conclusions are what you've seen. I'm not going to repeat them. I will say that we looked at it as a business proposition. And interestingly enough, each of the people involved in our task force, our group, whatever one wants to call it, had business backgrounds, running businesses. I ran a business for PricewaterhouseCoopers in Cincinnati, Ohio. Each of the other people ran businesses. We looked at this as a business issue, a business problem seeking a solution. That's how we brought it to task here. We understand that what we're talking about here is something different. It's been mentioned by others. We believe it's time to act as well, echoing the comments by some of the people here. We believe it is time to take action in Ocean Point. As somebody said, we're very good at studying things. There are no guarantees here. Dave Stevens says we need to look at it more. In fact, I jotted a note down. He said outsourcing could be a definite possibility. Could be a definite possibility. That sounds like Ocean Pines. We believe we need to take some action to move forward. If the board decides not to do this, then fine. I mean, we'll go on and do something else, I suppose. We believe, without guarantees, that this is the right answer for Ocean Pines at this point in its history. A couple of specific comments made by Ray. Ray, you said the people who go there now don't want changes. I agree with that. However, this is far more broader than the people who go there now. As it relates to the food and beverage operation, and specifically the yacht club, and Joe, I want to commend you for reducing the size of that loss dramatically this past year. On the other hand, I'm very conscious of the dissatisfaction in the community with what it is we're offering them. That's not your fault. This is not about Joe. This is about reaching out to a broader community than the people who go there today and are very happy and who say, give me more of what you're giving me now, I love it. Meanwhile, we've got out in that 8,440 members of our association, ladies and gentlemen, a tremendous number of people who simply do not go there. They don't express their view. They don't come up to Joe and say this or that. They simply go elsewhere. There's also a large number of people, including some at this table, who will go there for a drink and then with their friends or relatives go out and get a meal somewhere. We're not talking about what was characterized by Ray as fine dining, or you didn't use that term, but top scale dining. We're talking about a decent meal and service and consistently served. That's what we're talking about. So when we talk about outsourcing the management of this club, it's to satisfy a far broader number of our residents, our members, than are currently being satisfied. We've taken informal surveys at the board level. I can use the word wives because we don't have a mixed group, but each of us has made the comment that we find it very difficult to convince our wives to go there for dinner. When you get there with couples, and we want to be in the top 10 list. That's our objective. Be in the top 10 list of people when they go to dine. Joe, this is not criticism of you. I think the perception of the community is a lot of this is related to Joe, and it's not. It's bringing expertise and experience at a higher level. Essentially, we're creating an assistant general manager position, which, by the way, outside of the subject of outsourcing, has been talked about from time to time from a resource need within Ocean Pine. We've talked about, both this board and prior boards, about the need for more effective management. We have Trudy and Bob Thompson, I think, the potential here to do exceedingly well. On the other hand, we've talked alternatively about an assistant general manager position. That's essentially what this is, creating an assistant general manager position. So I don't think we're rushing to judgment here. We've studied this long. It's been 8 months since it was originally raised at the end of January. It's been 7 months at the end of February when we said, let's look at it. And I'm going to just conclude there and say, I think we should move forward. Whatever the board decides, the board decides. Thank you.
Yeah, Tom Terry, Blue Water Court, for all of Blue Water Court. I want to commend this committee, and I want to reemphasize the fact of the level of expertise and the level of professionalism, and if you look at the resumes of the folks that were on this committee, this study that was handed to us a week ago in advance of this meeting for us to be able to review this issue, I can tell you from my background at Verizon, this would have cost about $1.5 million to have it done. It was thoroughly done. I found no holes in it. As an assessment of these two vendors, I ran procurement for Verizon for years. This was an exceptionally well-done package. There is no question that they have done their homework. There's also no question that earlier in this meeting I made a statement that we have not decided to outsource, and I had to level set that first. There was an assumption that this study was being done under an environment where a board had already agreed to outsource. We have a study here that is very thorough. In my opinion, it comes down to what is outsourcing. If you define outsourcing as simply handing it to somebody else so you don't have to fool with it, I'm dead against it. As I've said earlier in my life, I said not on my watch. Not if you're going to hand this off to somebody who you're not going to care about. I'm going to make a statement now that might be a little... we didn't change general managers for no reason. The outsourcing group, if we choose to outsource, I will guarantee you I'm one of 7 votes. But if it ends up going that way, regardless, this will have to be an active group that is reporting to our new general manager, and they better understand the solid line is to our management, not theirs. And that this is not going to be a hands-off, we're putting you over here relationship, let me know how you're doing. That cannot be the relationship. It has to be, you are performing services for Bob Thompson. You are performing services for us. Now, there's an interesting track that you guys uncovered that frankly I hadn't thought of. It's the career path for our own employees, the training for our own employees, that may in fact be a benefit to them. And I do think we do have to think of our employees in assessing this, of what we have to do next. In my opinion, the definition is more of a philosophy of how you're going to do it. And in my discussions with Bob about this whole issue, it is clear to me that, at least we're in sync, that if we go this way, it has got to be more of an insourcing of expertise than a handing off of the management of something. As to action now, moving forward, I firmly believe we have to move forward, and we have to move at some rate that is not plodding along for the next year, figuring out what to do again. I think the study is thorough. Have we compared it to the steady state of what we have today? I think the feet walking away from the yacht club and not going there to eat are a vote as to whether they're happy with it. I think the lost money at the golf club pretty much, in my mind, puts aside the idea of leaving things exactly as they are. That does not mean we can't hire a pro to run our golf course. We should take a look at that. We should. That's my opinion. And I think we ought to take a look at that. But at the same time, move forward, if we do, with defining more. Ray has pointed out some issues that he uncovered in his discussion that I think have to be thought through. That does not mean we can't move forward with this, with the motion that's going to be made. But the one person that right now I want to hear from, and then I want to hear from the rest of you, I frankly want to hear from Bob Thompson. Bob, we just made you our general manager. What do you want?
I don't like the mic, but I'll take it just so you can hear what I have to say, yes. It's hot, okay. Well, this is a board meeting, so, you're asking me from a board perspective to answer as a general manager. I was a board member, as most know, over the last year. Had my hands on the budgets, had my hands on looking at how we're performing at a lot of different levels. The outsourcing strategy for golf, I believe was instrumental in getting that started, at least for consideration. I think the team has done a fantastic job. I know not everyone's had the opportunity to read that book, but thank you all so much. I think that's more work than we've ever done for this type of consideration. Listening to some of the board members, and I had to go back and think about, because I've been here over 20 years in the Pines. I've seen a lot of change, I've seen a lot of things we've tried that haven't worked. Talking about bringing in a golf professional or a golf pro. First, I think Harlan's top notch. I mean, you don't get better than that from his expertise and skill set. Talk about golf pros that we had. I'm going to read the names from 73 forward, just in case we've forgotten who we've had. Bob Haley, 73 to 85. Hunt Crawlsby, 86 to 89. Buddy Sachs, 97 to 2000. Bob Beckelman, 2000 to 2007. Steve Reeves, 07. Sean Fishback, 08 to 2010. And now Scott Lennox. I wanted to make sure I went back and I knew most of the names, but I wanted to make sure I went back and looked at them all. We've had excellent people in those roles. I'm not sure hiring someone with that level of credential, and I can tell you some of these folks are extremely successful at other courses outside of Ocean Pines, still in our area. Still very highly sought after and spoken about. So I'm not sure hiring one person to do this job is going to make it work. In my opinion, looking at some of these, I don't think it would work. My opinion, outsourcing management contract should be considered here. I'm not sold, but I could work either way, that they need to be together. I've said that individually. Outsourcing golf, in my opinion, not only should be considered, should be voted on, and let's get on with business. I mean, we can analyze and analyze and analyze. My opinion is I'm brought in to make things happen. My recommendation, move forward with golf yesterday. The coupling it with the food and beverage, I think Joe, and if he's still here, fantastic. Joe done a fantastic job. You've been operating, as far as I can tell, as a board member, and now the last month going through all the fun, you've been operating very well with your hands tied. Excellent job, given no resources, given limited ability to do some things that we need to do. So, do we uncouple that? I don't know. But given the fact that we've lost $200,000 annually for the last 8 years in golf, and our membership went from 880 down, it was in a presentation that I gave in February, so I can back my numbers up. I did then, I can do it again. The loss in revenue continually, okay, is there. I think outsourcing must happen in golf, and I'm 50-50 on the outsourcing for food and beverage. I can work under either condition, but I think we need expertise in one or both of those areas to help us all grow.
Right, thank you, Bob. I'm now going to open it up to the Joe. Then we'll come back down.
Need a mic, Joe? Yeah, you get on the mic.
Put yourself on camera.
Stand in front of the camera.
Now then I'll get accused of showboating. My name is Joe Reynolds. I live at 84 Watertown Road. I've lived in Ocean Pines for 20 years. I've attended essentially every board meeting since 2004. No one should be put through that punishment, but I elected to do it myself. Actually, you learn a lot when you attend all the meetings. More people should attend them. I've seen a lot of presentations over the years. This has to be one of the more compelling I've seen. I've not seen all the details, of course, but it kind of makes sense to me, is my initial thought. And I want to thank Mr. Gumpsack and Mr. Rako, who really set this up at the beginning, and and the rest of that committee for the work they did. And what they did was they brought us to a crossroads. We were headed for this crossroads for a long time. And we could have just drifted along at a snail's pace and maybe reached that crossroads in 5 more years or 10 more years. But I tell you what, sooner or later, that crossroads was going to be right in front of us. And we have a choice. We can proceed along the lines that's been suggested here, or we can go on essentially with business as usual. And what's that? Well, if you go to the board meetings all the time, you'd know what it was. We have people sitting there at the table, board members with good intentions, debating whether the golf cart fee should be $35 or $35.95. We have a debate whether there should be hot dogs at the yacht club or not. Whether we have fine dining upstairs, and I don't know if we ever have, but if you could have sat for the last 6 years and listened to the endless hour after hour after hour debates over such minuscule items, there'd be no question that while there is no guarantee of success in outsourcing both of these things, at the very least, it's worth a shot for 3 years. At the very least. The alternative is to keep doing what we've been doing ineffectively, just year after year after year. So with due consideration, and I want to get a closer look at everything. And by the way, and I'm not being smart about this is not your decision. The decision belongs to the board of directors. They should consider what you have to say, certainly. But don't ever think that this is a thing to be voted on or a public opinion poll. These gentlemen were elected by all association members, 8,400 votes. Now, I've never seen even half that many members meet in one place. The only time association members speak with authority is when they're mailed a referendum or a ballot. Then you get a sense of what the association wants. You don't get a sense of what association members want by what the mood of any group is. Now, certainly, the mood of any group or what even one individual has to say should be considered by this board. But don't ever think that the mood of a group or your own views represent the views of 8,400 association members. But at any rate, we're at that crossroads. You all can tell the board which crossroad to take. I can tell them what to take. They have to make the decision in their minds as to what's best for Ocean Pines. And as an association member, short of hearing anything that's totally out of line with what's been presented here, I would urge the board to eventually go down that road to total outsourcing of everything. Thank you.
Back there,
Joe.
John O'Connor, Let's Go Place, Section 10. I've been a resident here for 13 years. I served 7 years on the Budget and Finance Committee, and I can appreciate Joe having to put up with board meetings time after time after time. Bless you, Joe, you're a masterpiece. I have one comment and 3 questions. We talked earlier about the people not going to the yacht club. I'm not sure changing the management is going to make them go to the yacht. They haven't been doing it since I moved here. You talked about the cost. There's a cost to OPA, I don't know what it was. I heard about $203,000 or whatever going out. But I haven't heard anything about an offset of that cost. So we're really adding the cost, and we're anticipating that the firm would be able to cover their additional costs plus whatever losses we have and then some. That makes it beneficial for Ocean Pines. It was also mentioned that Ocean Pines is going to be responsible for the bottom line and for the control. And we heard earlier about how the board was trying to tell us how to run the restaurant, how to do this, and not having the manager do it. So I guess my real question is, if we're going to maintain control and we're responsible for the bottom line, how are you going to control this company? Are you going to set the rates for golf? Are you going to set the menu? Are you going to set the prices for the menu? Or are we going to use their expertise and have little control over how they run a restaurant or a golf course?
These are all questions I have. I have no strong feelings one way or the other on outsourcing or not outsourcing. I'm an avid golfer. I play 5 times a week. The course is in great shape, even with the bad weather we've had. And then my last part is, are we going to have a membership fee, or are we going to be leaning toward a strictly public course where you pay as you go? These are the things that I have an interest in.
Well, fuck. John, I'm not quite sure how we define control either, okay? But, no, we won't control the fees, we won't control the program. What they have told us is, both Kemper and Casper, they want to pursue additional members. Casper's perception on that was less aggressive than Kemper's. Casper's perception on that was more in line with what we're seeing here, membership declining over several years. We don't see that changing immensely in the future. But the membership structure, as we have it now, I don't anticipate that changing. We will have some influence in the sense that we may say, hey, you know, these kinds of things is what we have tried in the past, didn't seem to work here. You do what you're going to do. So no, we wouldn't set the menu prices. We wouldn't set the menu. No.
Could I answer part of that as well? From a control standpoint, I look at this outsourcing strategy, okay? If you think of a company, I know it's bad, they're called amenities, wherever you are and call them, but I'm looking at Ocean Pines overall and holistically, okay? Some of the input or some of the concerns that I have as the general manager is, how does this line of business, okay, golf in particular, food and beverage, how do they interact with the rest of the association? Is the marketing of that strategy, does that fit the overall marketing and concept of what Ocean Pines is all about? Does this line of business, okay, I'm using one of them, does this feed into the overall well-being of our community? Does it protect our stockholders, our members, okay, and the values of their property? That's where I see, from a management role, my oversight on how does this impact the entire picture. I have no intention on setting golf fees or telling them how to run a golf course. That's, quite frankly, with the expertise, why we hire out. But how does what they do impact you folks as property owners? How does it fit into the global or the overall picture? It's no different than a GE or another company that has multiple lines of business in other parts of the country or overseas. They're just different lines of business that feed up into one corporation. You have to have someone sitting up there saying, yeah, this is helping us with the rest, or it's not. That's where I see my role as opposed to day-to-day managing the golf course. That's not my expertise, and that's what we hired them for.
And if it works, would you do it for aquatics?
We're going to fix aquatics.
Okay.
That's not as hard.
I just want to reinforce what Jim Beisler said here a moment ago and respond very, very definitively. They're going to run it as they see fit. Now, having said that, there will be an annual process where a plan is put together, including a budget for the year, and we will not only have input to that, but we will agree with them on that budget and that plan for the year. But as Bob and I have talked, he doesn't get to decide the hours of the operation. He doesn't get to decide whether we should have tuna fish sandwiches on the menu. We are buying their expertise. We are buying their management ability. We need to stay out of their way, but monitor it. As I look back in history about the past outsourcing efforts, I wasn't here. I can't speak with direct knowledge. Some of you may be able to. But Marriott and Canteen, my sense in having gone through the entire file about 2 years ago, when I was part of food and beverage management, or absolute management group, I guess it was, John McLaughlin and I were on that together. There was what appeared to me to be an awful lot of board interference in them doing their jobs, Marriott and Canteen. The concept here is they manage, we provide oversight, we agree on the plan, we agree on the budget. We've got to let them, if we're going to interfere with it, manage it ourselves, we might as well not do it, okay? So that's the concept. That's how it works elsewhere. That's what they do. And we as board members and as management have to respect that. Otherwise, it won't work the way it's intended to.
Joe Salafi again, 406 Ocean Park. I just had one or two questions. Number one, I think, I'm not sure whether it was Ray or not, that mentioned that we had a problem with the food and beverage linking the beach club into the operations with the outsourcer. And I think you mentioned it because of our licensors, we couldn't do something of that nature. And it kind of comes back to my mind, well, we have a lot of outsiders at the yacht club. We have a lot of outsiders at the Turn Grill. These are food and beverage operations within our community. How does the beach club then differ out of the overall food and beverage operation that you can't have outsiders there? That you can't have outsiders there when they are prevalent at the yacht club and Turn Grill?
I'll answer that. The license at the beach club is a particular type of liquor license. That is, we are to sell only to Ocean Pines owners, residents, and members of Ocean Pines. The yacht club liquor license is different. We can sell to anybody at that location.
And their guests.
But that does not affect the ability of who manages either one of those locations. It's just a type of liquor license. So the management of it can be done. There's no connection as to who can manage it or not based on the liquor license.
Could we apply for a different license to be compatible with the yacht club and the Turn?
My understanding is that would be a pretty tough hill to climb, but we can look into that.
Yes.
My advice is we could look into it, but I'm told that's a pretty rough road to change. But we'll have to see. But that does not connect with who can manage it or not. It really doesn't affect it. What I believe Ray was saying is that, you know, when you interview a company to come in and look at something, you're at this level and you get an estimate when you're doing an RFP response. When you get into the contractual levels and the setting of the budgets and the setting of the objectives and the final setting of fees, you get down to the level of into the weeds where what are the limitations? Well, you can't sell to the general public there because, and then they become aware of that. So Ray is right, but a lot of that would have to be worked out in the final numbers. Okay, another question? Or is that
Just one other quick one. I think I heard something like $203,000 at this point as anticipated management fee that we would be paying the group with an expected yield in return of $326,000 in revenue. I guess those are, if I'm understanding that correctly, we're going to incur a $203,000 or approximate level of additional management expense, and that $326,000 revenue minus the $203 in expenses gives us about $120,000 of profit. Is that the way I'm looking at this, those rough figures? And do you have any other figures that might be a little more meaningful at this point? I know it needs to be negotiated and a contract developed, but you have to have some planned figures on paper at this time.
Let me just put it this way. To a person sitting around this table, we have said that the report that was done by this group was very thorough and very complete. They have their proposal in front of us as a board. It reflects all numbers. I mean, this book is full of numbers that are basically proprietary because it is a bid from a company that competes in the real world to compete for business. So we can't sit here and quote numbers exactly from that. I can act as a board member, or others can act as, here's the information we got from a committee that was formed. This is their proposal based on numbers, and the numbers work in the end. All of these are pro forma numbers. All of this has to be finalized and finite. There's a lot of work to do to get a contract in place to get down to the final numbers. Okay?
Let me just, one thing, one quick. When you talk about the liquor license, I'm plead guilty. What happened was, we decided, when they came forward with their various Sunday proposals, we understood that they did not have a good understanding of the Ocean City liquor license requirements and the impact on us. We chose to not raise that complexity, that issue of detail at that time. So when Ray raised it with them, they were not aware of it because we had chosen as a group to not get into that kind of detail at that point in time. We were taking a bigger picture view of the world, and we just didn't think it was appropriate to get into details of Ocean City politics and what you'd have to do with a license, so we chose to ignore that. So if they didn't respond appropriately to Ray, that's my fault. I accept responsibility for that. And that's, as to the numbers, I'm not going to quote you numbers, but I just want to quote you the thing that was on the slide there. One of the options that we had as a group was to say this makes sense for Ocean Climbs, but the cost-benefit relationship does not work. We arrived at a different conclusion. We ran all the numbers. Yes, they're pro formas. We applied some discounting to that. It still made economic sense, whereby the fees were exceeded by the profit above and beyond the fees. Fair enough?
Since the numbers came from me, I have the microphone now. Yeah, those are just picking out of the entire spreadsheet of, going through payroll, all kinds of expenses, but trying to bore in on what's we believe a cost benefit would be, or what's the rationale for thinking that there would be a cost benefit. And all I was trying to do there was say, look, we're going to add $203,000. Okay, that's going to happen, okay, no matter what. I mean, it doesn't matter whether you're successful, unsuccessful, whatever. It's going to cost us that much more. Okay, now, how would that be covered? And this is part of the proposal from Casper Golf, is that we would do that by increasing revenues by $326,000. That's a combination of both golf and food and beverage. So you're right. Now there's much more to it than that, although that's certainly the biggest figures. So for an example, they're also talking about reducing costs. And I pointed out that the biggest number of that would have been payroll costs. Again, compared to what we have now. And talking about reducing other expenses, but that tends to be a smaller number when you add them all up. In some cases, they're increased, in some cases, not. For an example, payroll would be increased by $100,000 above and beyond the 203. Now, the 203, by the way, isn't the management fee. It includes the cost of the general manager and the management fee. Two different numbers that I just added up. Okay? Does that answer your question? I'd like to, while I have the microphone, just respond to one thing that Bob said earlier. I'm not quite sure what the point was in going through the history of all the pros, simply saying that pros come and go, and they do, certainly. And in the future, any pros would probably come and go. Now, Bob has been here for 20 years, but I've been a member of the golf course since 1978. So I've seen more pros than you have, and I've had more experiences. And one of the things that you have to understand is that during a good portion of this time, the Ocean Pines golf course was extremely successful. I mean, at points in time, it had contributed a net profit to the association, not a subsidy or a loss. It's true during the last 8 years, the golf course has declined, but we've also seen a tremendous buildup of other golf courses in the area. In other words, conditions change. Conditions change. At a certain point in time, when we were a membership-based golf course, and the members were supplying all of the income to the golf course, there was really not a lot of attention paid to trying to develop outside play or market outside play or do any of these things. So you have to look at the conditions at a period of time. During the early 2000s, our golf course was, how can I say it charitably, a dog track. It was the worst conditions that I've seen, and it compared poorly to many of the golf courses in this area. Anybody that's a member here knows that. And there are circumstances that change these things. The fact of the matter is, in comparing those golf courses, or other pros rather, I mean, what you really have to look at is, did we ever have somebody that met today's conditions who had the skills to, for example, market outside the land, balance these things? And I think the answer is flat out no. We haven't. So that's an untried thing. I mean, we haven't done it. And it doesn't mean we can't do it. I heard somebody say, I guess, John, that we tried this outsourcing with Marriott, but it was because of board interference. Well, I don't know that that's true. I don't know. But I did spend a whole day going through all of those outsourcing proposals. And I can only bring off the top of my head, we were losing over $300,000. I mean, when we went from that to self-management, we cut our losses in half. It was terrible. Now, do I think that'll happen again? No. Do I think we can be smart enough to avoid that again? Yes. But there's a lot of work to be done before we get to that point, and that's the point I'm making right now. You talk about the amount of control that we have. So on the one hand, Tom says, well, we're going to really control it. I don't think he really meant that. And what we're hearing the committee say is, no, you're not. They're going to be in full control. Well, you know what? We have to figure that out. Exactly what is going to be satisfactory to allow a company like Casper? What amount of control do they have to do their job? You know, what is their authority, for example, to renovate our facilities? What is their authority? I mean, what are we going to do about continuing our improvements, our drainage project? I mean, how does that impact we haven't seen enough from them to know that they really understand all of the factors that are involved. I think they've tried, but they're still not far from there yet. We have a lot of questions that have to be asked before we ever can get to this point, even of deciding whether or not we should do it.
Let me explain one thing, folks. When it comes to the numbers that are in this RFP response, there are limits of what we can share publicly. This is still an open competition. The other company is still there. We can't, so as much as we would like to sit here and quote all the numbers, we just can't do that. Non-disclosure precludes us from doing that. We spent all that time yesterday. You heard Dave say we went through it. We got to this point where we are. We spent a lot of time here. I'm going to take maybe two more questions. Pete, I know you want to respond and clarify one thing. So, I'll take, if it's okay. I mean, we can be here till 5 o'clock, folks, if you want. But let me just. Okay, go back. Ladies first, according to Joe.
No, she's had her hand up numerous times, and I think she thinks we're ignoring her. That's not okay.
I can't see it.
Well, I do.
I'm sorry, I couldn't see it. I apologize.
Joan Hatfield, 8 Battersea Road. What I wanted to know are the repairs that we have already started undertaking for the golf. Will they not only continue, but does that come out of Ocean Pines, or does it come out of this management? I mean, is that in addition to the management fee? That's number one. And the other question I have, who controls the fees? Because if they're too high, they're going to get more and more people dropping out. So.
Okay. Pete, you got some clarification?
Yeah. Good question. Your first question relates to capital expenditures, and I was going to respond to the earlier gentleman's question too. The answer is that with respect to capital additions, they're on us, and we have total say about expenditures on either the yacht club or the golf course. Those are Ocean Pines decisions, and we will be, now they'll make recommendations to us. That's not viewed as part of the operations management contract, okay? So capital additions, whether we put in another golf course hole, or whether we do extensive renovation of the yacht club, or tear it down, those are our decisions. They're not at all related. Now, they may have some input on that to help us decide that, but those are our decisions to make, okay? And your second question was?
Raising of
Raise.
Oh, rates. They would be suggesting the rates. They would not be successful, by the way, if they raised the rates in a a way that allowed the membership to go down, right? They're not going to earn any incentive fee if they do that, and they don't meet the budget. So the answer is they have incentive to make it successful beyond the budgeted amounts. They will be the ones setting the rates. But again, that will be incorporated into the budget, which we have an opportunity to review and approve and jointly sign off on, if you will. But they're the experts. They're the ones that will have to determine through marketing and otherwise what rates make sense for us in the current environment and given where we are. That's what, in part, we're paying for, their expertise. Remember, they do this for hundreds of golf courses. They understand the market in a way that we in Ocean Pines cannot. So they will.
My name is Bill Wentworth. I live at 7 Trinity Place here in Ocean Pines. My family's owned property down here for about 32 years, and I've been living here close to 10. Pete, I used to always say, you've never seen a mic you didn't like. I think one of your colleagues at the end of the table, you have competition now, buddy. Okay, I am also the chairperson of the Club's Advisory Committee, which is the food and beverage operation. Last week, we were given by Jim Yates, who's also a member of the Club's Advisory Committee and who's on this task force committee, and a comprehensive report on exactly what the study was. And as other folks have said, it's absolutely our committee unanimously voted to commend the task force on an excellent job as far as how well the study was. It was a comprehensive, thorough study, and just a job well done. Now, to the question at hand. Last week, there was an op-ed in the Courier with regard to how things were. And as the gentleman wrote this op-ed about how things were when Ocean Pines started and how we just did this and did that. Well, folks, that's not an option. We cannot continue to go how things have been. This community is 42 years old. No one in here is still driving the car that they drove 42 years ago. Because of the growth of our community over the last 42 years, we just cannot continue down this avenue. As Les Purcell, who attended our Club's Advisory Committee last week, informed us, Ocean Pines is the second largest homeowners association in the country. Not in the state of Maryland, in the country. Second only to Columbia, which means there aren't a lot of homeowners associations, obviously. So, second to Columbia. We cannot continue to operate as a mom and pop operation. We are a large community. We are heading into the big time. We are a business organization. Let me explain to you mathematically how growth impacts management issues. If you had a family of 3 in your family, it's a mathematical term called factorial. The number of issues that you could have in that 3 is determined by multiplying 3 times 2 times 1, which is 6. That's the number of possible groupings, number of possible interactions you could have in your family. What you call physicians, as parents and grandparents, we all know that. If you increase that number by 1, from 3 to 4, that number goes from 6 to 24. 4 times 3 is 12, times 2 is 24, times 1. So as we grow, we need people with expertise in the various management areas that we're doing to give our managers direction. We do not need board of directors, president of board of directors, telling the food and beverage operation how they should be operating. If we're going to have a successful program, and Joe has done a wonderful job, he's done what he was directed to do by his boss, which was the general manager. That's the only person he is answering to right now, is the general manager. He did exactly what our previous general manager told him to do. So anyone who has faults with, that's the type of food, the quality of food, what we're doing, he was given direction to do what he was told to do. There are things he wanted to do that he was stopped from doing, that maybe could have created a better situation over there. But the bottom line is, we cannot continue to travel down the same path that we've been traveling. Because what we're getting into is paralysis by analysis. We need to make a decision and move on with it. We can't keep doing what we have been doing. Thank you.
Tom Bickerstaff, 29 Wood Duck Drive. I've been here for 4 years, so I'm kind of a newbie. But of those 4 years, I've spent 3 on the Budget and Finance Advisory Committee. I was part of that committee when Pete, who is now a board member, very wisely put together a package in terms of pre-funding some of the capital expenditures that this entity is going to incur over the next 5 years or so. One of my concerns is that if we outsource both the golf operation and the food and beverage, what kind of impact is that going to have on us as we try to refurbish or tear down and rebuild the yacht club and incur expenses there? We're paying this outside organization for some of their management expertise on food and beverage. If we cut down or shut down the yacht club, we don't have that income anymore. We've also been told, at least from what I understand from what Ray said, if we're going to have food and beverage going on at the golf club, either at Turn Grill or whatever, we could end up spending money on the kitchen long before we're ready to do what we really want to do with the golf course or the golf club itself. So my concern is, how does this affect what we're trying to do in terms of refurbishing the capital projects that we have on the board?
I'm going to start responding to these questions so we can move forward a bit. Tom, you raised an issue that is very valuable to understand. It is critical that we keep in mind that we are hiring management expertise to come in here and help our people, help our team do better. We are in an environment. There is an environment of a yacht club that had decisions have to be made. We are in an environment of a 5-year plan where we're going to be refurbishing things. When you manage an entity, you have to manage within the confines of the environment we have, and any relationship we ultimately cut with anyone, should we decide to go to outsourcing, would reflect that kind of situation. You know, reality is they may very well help us decide, along with the folks who live in Ocean Pines, if we, you know, depending on what we do with the yacht club, what we should do with it. So, but the financing of that is ours to do, and the environment of that exists, and we would have to take that as the environment in which this contract, if we do one, is managed. Okay? Anyway.
I think enough.
Got one. Very brief. Everybody admits that Joe has done a fantastic job in improving the situation down at the yacht club. Those of you who've been around here a long time know that we've had management in the past that didn't welcome anybody into the yacht club. Joe has changed that. For the folks that do go there and, you know, and visit him, it's a great place to go. And Joe is on the floor. He comes out and he talks to people. He acts like a restaurant juror would. He's running a business. He knows how to outreach. I suggest that you at least consider separating the two issues, giving Joe a chance. You've talked about you have restraints on him, so he couldn't do certain things. Take him off. Give him a chance to run. How do you expect him to be a good manager and make money in-house if you keep his hands tied?
It is name.
I'm sorry, Ray Pugh, 334 Ocean Parkway.
Thank you. You want to respond?
Yeah, I'm done.
I just wanted to say one thing.
I'm done.
Before. You said that he did not have an assistant. Couldn't you hire an assistant and someone to back him up and support him and see what happens?
The As far as Joe goes, everyone applauds Joe. Would not be our intent to get rid of Joe, replace Joe. He would have to be there to be a part of this team. And I want to clarify one thing that Pete said earlier. He made a comment about board of directors going to the yacht club or not. We all have wives. Carol would kill me if it came out that she didn't want to go to the yacht club. The fact is, we go to the yacht club all the time. So one of us, as a partner with his spouse, goes to the yacht club quite often. So, no, I've been going for years since I moved here. Okay, just to clarify that, there's no intent of bringing these folks in and not giving our people the support and the chance to succeed in the environment you're talking about. Yes?
Yeah. Just my response to that question is that I believe that under the anticipated terms and conditions, that the management company will hire as their employees anybody that they see fit, okay? And that we will have no say as to who they do or who they do not hire. We can hope
Yes,
that
that's
they
correct.
will use some sense, but let's make it perfectly clear.
Yeah, absolutely. There's no question, when you sit down and negotiate a contract with someone, again, I keep saying if we get that far, when you're talking to them, you certainly get the intent of the direction of where they plan to go. You get their business plan, if you will, and you do, as the person, have the opportunity in signing the contract to understand, to hold them the direction they're going to go. Are we going to hire that person and demand that someone be kept? To your point, no. But that's clear. But if I were negotiating with me for this contract and I'm making comments about somebody who I really like, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense for them to come in and say we're going to boot that person. So, at some point it becomes a partnership where things have to work. Okay.
My name is Ron Kinnear. I'm in Clubhouse. It's pretty obvious to me that the board has made up their mind. And the only thing I caution you about, gentlemen, is based on our legal representation, be very cautious on how you get into this contract. I think it's going to hurt us in the end. Thank you.
I'd like a little clarification opportunity for that, just so I understand.
What would you like the clarification on?
Well, as far as the contract goes, your concerns.
Our legal representation is Joe Moore, right? What has he done in the last few years? Do I have to say more, or do we have to spell everything out?
No, I wanted to make sure I understood exactly what you were referring to. All right, I'm going to allow three more, and that, we've been here a long time, folks, and I appreciate your interest in ours as well.
I just wanted an answer to my question, and that was, had you considered getting an assistant for Joe and supporting him, giving him another chance?
I'll let the committee respond.
Let me respond to that, please. Ma'am, I may have misled you earlier. When I talked about we have considered an assistant general manager position, not for the yacht club, but for the Ocean Pines Association. Okay? So when I made reference to an assistant general manager, it wasn't in the context of food and beverage of the yacht club.
Why wasn't? Why don't you have?
But we have a general manager of food and beverage. His name's Joe Reinhardt. No, I asked
An
him.
assistant.
He needs help. Marketing is an area where frankly, what we see as the benefit, and I put it up there earlier about food and beverage, the benefits include resources beyond what we have here in this community right now. Marketing is a key element of that. Managing over 100 food and beverage operations is part of that. The knowledge and experience brought to bear by, brought to the equation by an outsourcing firm is far different than any one individual who can be hired to support Joe. So we are really contracting with an entity, that's what we're suggesting here, that has a very broad base of experience far beyond what a single individual, whether he's assistant to Joe or not. Joe is the current food and beverage manager, and the intent here is to have a level above that between he and Bob Thompson to oversee. So the marketing is only one of the examples of what the management firm can bring to us, a broad base of experience that currently does not exist in our organization right now.
Excuse me. So I think the answer to your question is no.
He started.
Excuse me,
at a
I don't think that the question was answered.
Okay.
He,
Which, with the,
he started.
I believe the lady is asking, why don't we just leave things alone and hire us an assistant for Joe?
Well, he started as
I
a.
understand.
Leave things alone and give Joe some help.
Right.
That's what her question is.
Okay. And-
We haven't, as far as I know, we haven't considered that. Maybe Bob has, but I don't know.
He started as.
That's what I said earlier about options. We do have other options still. It just doesn't sound very much like we do, but I think we do.
Well, Joe was an assistant to Pudge, and then when Pudge left, Joe was left to handle everything. And I
Yes.
thought that he really had full play.
to your question, the assessment of getting Joe an assistant was not a particular line item in the study. As Les says, there are options out there that maybe have not been looked at yet. Pete's answer to my mind says they've looked at it as bringing someone in above Joe to provide that kind of resource as opposed to a reporting person. But to your particular question, did they study hiring someone to work for Joe? I don't believe they did.
Correct.
Okay, correct? Yes.
I got room for two more, folks. Man in the blue and Joyce.
My name is Donald LaFont, number 2 Windjammer. I think one of the things that we fail to realize here, we're going back to what we've done before, and that is patchwork kind of thing. We try to say, well, let's patch this up, let's do this, let's hire another person. And basically we lost the whole idea of the total concept of the thing. Change is hard for most of us. But if we look at the potential here, the committee's done an excellent job. We look at the potential of what we could possibly, what is a possible outcome, as opposed to what if we do this, what if, we can do that till doomsday. And we need to get off the proverbial pot and move forward. And this is one option I think that we need to look at very seriously. And I'm assuming that a lot of the questions that have been brought up here will be answered. But I think, you know, it's a great opportunity to look at something a little bit different and a more comprehensive kind of plan that has probably a greater potential than we've done up to this point. But what do we have to lose? We're going to keep on losing more money as it is until we may patch up something which will never happen. So we have to look at, you know, I think we have to look at this more comprehensively. Thank you.
Joyce?
Joyce Nesbitt, and I live on Ocean Parkway. One of my questions was those that did the field trip down to Virginia and wherever, what type of a community was that? Was that like a 40-year-old community, or were they 10-year-old communities?
I'll let the team answer that.
Jim, you want to answer that?
Yeah, the two of them were relatively new, 5 to 10 years. One was quite a bit older. I don't know how old Swan Point is, but it's quite a bit older than that. So, but they were all HOA, so they all had the same kind of makeup as we have. Yeah, they're different, there's no question, they were all different. But they were HOAs as opposed to, you know, just general.
But they were newer.
They were newer, yes.
One of them was 20 years old. That's new, that's new.
That's new to Ocean Pines, that's new. And
I'm sorry, he said, we got a correct answer to the question.
It's one point, but since the 70s, I worked there.
Since the 70s.
Okay. The other thing I say, since it sounds like there's a little bit of gray area, let's let the yacht club go with Joe running it again, close it down and fix it up, and then be ready to do the outsourcing if that's what we need.
We're going to do another round up here, and then we're going to move on. That's what I mean by move on. Well, there's comments we make.
All right. First of all, I have two things. One, both Kemper and Casper felt they could decrease the maintenance cost by $80,000 to $100,000 a year in buying power and other ways to do it. There's a lot of money right there we can save. The other thing is, having Joe there is going to be important for them as well as us. I mean, a company's not going to come in and say, you're all gone. They want to make money. They know Joe's popular, they know Joe's doing a good job. Why are they going to fire him? They're not. You buy a new business, essentially what they're doing, when you come in to a new business, and business is doing well, which food and beverage is doing well compared to last year, they look at Joe and say, okay, what do you think? That's why I met with him yesterday for 2 hours or so, okay? And then they're going to take Joe, hopefully help him, and get him more management expertise, more expertise in marketing, and then see how he does in a year. It's only a 3-year contract. In 3 years, if we do nothing, 3 years from now, we'll be further down the negative pipe, and we'll all be saying to ourselves, geez, what do we do now? Also, I don't think, I think Bob Thompson talked about the golf course. It's a matter of historical relevance. I'm not saying any pros are not bad or good or whatever else. Just showing you that down the road that several pros, I'm sure they've all tried very hard, but in the last 5 years, golf has really become a difficult area to make money. All right, so we're trying to move forward. We're just trying to do the right thing. Look, you know what? We might make a decision. We could be wrong. We need to make a decision.
John?
I'll make this very quick and unemotional, whether we like Joe or we don't like Joe. Based on my conversations with people from Casper Golf and their understanding the operations of the yacht club, the beach club, and Turns Grill, the numbers that they're asking us to vote on food and beverage are wrong.
As to the numbers, they are what they gave us. We haven't negotiated anything yet. Until the negotiations take place, we don't know what those numbers are. So I take those numbers with a grain of salt until we sit down and actually negotiate. We've been talking about Joe and the job that he's done. This is not a personality issue. This is more about implementing systems and putting good systems in place to make what we have, make our location even better. If we take a look at we have a great staff, and you heard earlier, if you stayed there, Bob talked about our great staff, but they are limited in the scope of what they can and cannot do. By bringing in this large management firm, they're going to bring into us systems that have been proven. And I think that's one of the keys. These systems are coming in, and they're relatively inexpensive. You know, I know a couple $100 grand is not chump money. However, if we had to hire the complete staff with the capability of doing that, I believe we would far exceed it. Now, someone may come back and say we haven't analyzed it, and that's true. But the point is, we've discussed this for years, and we're still here without good systems. And we need those systems in place to move forward. So with that, I'll pass.
Okay, I'm going to move to the agenda section on, there was a motion that was handed out with the agenda. Pete, your name is next to that. I will turn it over to you. Place in motion or remove it or replace it?
Boy, put me on the spot here, Tom. Because I do have a motion that I put forward a week ago, and on behalf of the committee, by the way. Only the press, well, those of you who look, the motion previously, it's on the agenda right now until modified, and that's what we're being asked to look at. It said, be it resolved that the Board of Directors authorize.
What was the motion that we decided on yesterday?
I don't think.
We're gonna get.
This is what has been distributed, Les.
This is what's been distributed. I want to make sure they know this might be replaced with nothing we're talking about.
Might be.
This is not being put in the motion. We're just explaining the change. At this point, go ahead.
Thank you. The motion that was previously distributed, which I put on the agenda a week ago, says, be it resolved that the Board of Directors authorize and direct the President to enter into a management services contract to manage the Association's entire golf operation and its entire food and beverage operation, all locations, as soon as possible.
That motion is not being put on the table.
Well, I could put it on the table. It's on the table, but I'm going to remove it. Okay. So I'm going to propose a substitute motion which reads as follows. Be it resolved that the board accept the task force recommendations to select Casper Golf as a management firm should the board decide to enter into a management services contract for golf and/or food and beverage. That is my amended motion for purposes of this meeting. I wish it could be otherwise.
Are you making that motion?
I am indeed.
I'll second it.
We have a motion and second. Discussion?
Read it again.
I will read it again. Be it resolved that the board accept the task force recommendation to select Casper Golf as the management firm should the board decide to enter into a management services contract for golf and/or food and beverage.
So before we can vote on that, we have to decide whether we're going to enter into a contract.
No.
No, it's just that they would be the company that we use if we decide.
What this says in plain, let me answer. What this says to me in plain English is, if we, in the future, vote to go to outsourcing, we don't have to go back through another RFP process. We are selecting Casper to either be the management firm for golf and/or food and beverage. That's what that says to me, Les.
Yes.
I like the plain English version better.
Okay, well, go ahead.
I think what this does, I mean, this may sound like a big disappointment to those who expected us to actually do something today, but no, what this does do is move us somewhat closer. It allows us, I think, to continue any further investigation with only one company in mind. I mean, it certainly will help the interchange when you come to terms and conditions and figuring out what they can be. I mean, if we had two companies hanging out there all along, again, we wouldn't be able to talk about numbers. We wouldn't be able, because of that factor of competition. So the factor of competition is gone. And I think it is a step forward, even though it may not, to some people, sound like a great step forward.
Any other comments, discussion? I'll call the question. All in favor? Aye. Opposed?
Aye.
Okay.
Want to make another motion?
Were you and I or no?
I was a
It
no.
was a no.
I was a no.
6-1, 6-1.
Yep.
There's another motion.
As we seem to be discussing outsourcing today, we've got a fairly large degree on that. I'd like to put a motion on the table, and the motion read that the board approve outsourcing both food and beverage operation, food and beverage and golf operations.
And authorize the president to.
And authorize the president
Contract
to
negotiations.
continue contract negotiations to the point of where we have a contract agreement.
For a second? Or you second? Discussion?
I think.
Yeah, I think we had this discussion yesterday, but we didn't do it in public. Somebody I think pointed out, a lot of this hasn't been done in public. I believe that motion is immature, premature. I believe that we this report was handed to us with the pro formas on it, in it, last Thursday. The information that the committee gave is very valuable, but it is certainly incomplete. It does not contain any kind of an evaluation of whether or not we can continue or take the steps that we have been taking and compare that to the benefits that we can derive from outsourcing. It doesn't take, now that we have the pro formas, we have a single contractor, it shouldn't take forever, it shouldn't take a very long time at all to do that work. I think it's a big mistake. You know, you talk about paralysis by analysis, and it seems like a, pretty nifty term, you can kind of get into. But making decisions without doing the necessary work is a lot bigger mistake. So I cannot say how strongly I feel about not taking this motion at this point in time.
Would you repeat the motion?
Phyllis?
Yes.
Would you read the motion?
John moved that the board approve outsourcing for both golf and food and beverage, and ask the president to, or authorize the president to continue negotiating a contract. And Rick second.
Well, I agree that it's premature too. Not only that, but it's entirely against what the president said he would do when we sat down. Not vote on that today before we explore other options. So I can't stop it, but I don't feel very good about it. As you know, and as I read earlier, and what was distributed was on behalf of the committee, and of course we have a very strong conviction that having done the work that we've done, and I recognize that we can't have everybody step into our shoes and have all the information that we have. Nonetheless, the initial motion put forward by myself was to proceed to contract and to authorize this entering into it for both golf and food and beverage. And I believe I still support that. I would intend to vote for the motion. I think as various people in the audience have said today, we need to move forward. This microphone doesn't work. Anyway, so I think it's appropriate to consider, like I said at the very outset of this session of the meeting, that it's up to the board. And so I'm prepared to accept that motion and to have a vote on it.
I want to wade in here. I think there is a time frame here where there have been legitimate questions about looking at the impact of this. We've now decided on Casper. I think there is a checkpoint with a brand new general manager that has to happen very quickly. This is not a matter of weeks and months. This is a matter of very quickly assessing the impact, making sure we understand all the numbers. But at that point, I think I am not looking for this thing to hang out forever. But I do think we do need to take the input that we heard here today, a lot of the questions, put them into our brain. And I would look to call a special meeting of the board if this motion failed. I would be looking to call a special meeting of the board very soon to reassess this motion and think about it. But I think we need to, my personal opinion is we're going to take in the input we just got from the community and put that into the play. But that doesn't mean weeks and months worth of assessment. It means a process that moves quickly. Because I agree with those who said it's time for action. So, any other comments?
Just one.
Sure.
I'm always concerned about change. Change is tough. But also, we often talk about changing paradigms. I've often made the comment to my folks is that you can change paradigms, but you'll never change the paradigm if you're on the same roadmap. And I'm concerned that we're trying to change a paradigm, but staying on the same road. And I think the right direction is to move forward.
Okay. Call the question. Those in favor of the motion?
Aye. Aye.
Opposed? We will not let this sit. It will not idle. We will continue to move this thing forward. It's important for the community. At this point, we're going to move back into going over the CPI valuations and try to get through the rest of our agenda very rapidly. Okay, thank you.
People can stay for that?
You can stay for that.
5-minute break?
5-minute break.
Tom? We have a 5-minute
Yes, you can have a break.
Joe Reynolds called for it.
That was a question.
He needs a cigarette.